The universe stretched infinitely around Captain Ava Torres as she stared out from the cockpit of the Aegis, Earth's last surviving starfighter. A blanket of stars lay beyond the observation glass, and somewhere out there, hidden in that vast darkness, was the Eldrix Armada, a terrifying mass of 10,000 alien warships, advancing like a tidal wave, set to crush humanity's final remnants. She could feel the weight of that approaching force pressing down on her, a reminder of the impending confrontation that would decide the fate of an entire species. Earth's leaders had tried to negotiate, tried to fight, tried to survive, but the Eldrix, a ruthless and technologically superior alien race, had waged war without mercy, tearing through Earth's defenses and dismantling human civilization piece by piece. Cities lay in ruins. Millions had perished. The rest of humanity, those who hadn't yet fallen to the relentless assault, clung to the shadows, hiding in whatever shelter remained. The Council, Earth's highest governing body, had put all their hope into the Aegis, a unique, last-resort weapon that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. It was the last card humanity had to play, and they had entrusted it to Ava. A transmission crackled through her comms. "Captain Torres, this is General Stinson. You're clear for launch. The Eldrix are closing in fast." "Godspeed, Captain." Ava tightened her grip on the control stick, inhaling slowly to steady her nerves. She had known the risks when she volunteered for this mission, had accepted the reality that she might not return. But now, with the vast emptiness of space ahead and the knowledge of the countless lives resting on her success, that weight felt heavier than ever. This wasn't just another battle. It was the culmination of humanity's final hope, a fight for survival against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Her fingers danced across the console, activating the Aegis systems. The ship hummed to life, its power surging through her controls. The Aegis was unlike any other vessel. Sleek and almost predatory in design, it was packed with advanced tech, some of it reverse-engineered from the very aliens she was about to face. The ship's hull, dark and reflective, seemed to absorb the surrounding starlight, making it appear almost ghostly. The Aegis had been designed with one purpose in mind: to infiltrate and eliminate, to be as deadly as it was elusive. If it worked, Ava would have a chance to slip past the Eldrix defenses and strike at their heart. "General," Ava replied, her voice steady but tinged with determination. "Beginning departure sequence. I'll make sure Earth's sacrifice wasn't in vain." She activated the cloaking system, a cutting-edge stealth technology that bent light around the ship, rendering it nearly invisible to the naked eye and most detection systems. The Aegis faded into the darkness, a silent specter ready to slip through the cracks of the enemy's armor. This was her moment, her chance to face the monstrosity threatening to end her species, and she was prepared to give everything for it. As she navigated through space, the cold silence reminded her of the friends and family she had lost in the war. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her mind, reminding her of the strength and resilience her family had always believed in. Ava drew on that memory now, letting it fuel her resolve. She would be strong. For them, for humanity, for the countless souls depending on her. Ava's comms beeped again, pulling her back to the present. "Captain Torres, be advised," General Stinson's voice warned. "The Eldrix Armada is moving faster than we anticipated. They're 12 hours from Earth's orbit. You need to be in position by then." "Understood," she replied, glancing at her display. 12 hours. It was a tight window, but Ava had never been one to back down from a challenge. She keyed in her coordinates and increased speed, feeling the Aegis respond instantly, accelerating smoothly through the vacuum of space. Every system, every piece of technology felt like an extension of herself, a bond that only grew stronger with each passing second. Her gaze shifted to the ship's weapons display. The Aegis was equipped with a sophisticated array of weaponry, but it was its energy manipulation system that truly set it apart. This was a piece of tech the Eldrix had inadvertently provided, a core capable of bending energy and matter in ways humanity hadn't even dreamed of. Ava didn't know exactly how it worked, only that it had the potential to level the playing field against a fleet that should have been invincible. As she soared onward, memories of her training came rushing back. Days and nights spent in simulators, learning the intricacies of the alien technology they had been lucky enough to salvage. The risks had been enormous. Integrating Eldrick's tech into a human ship had nearly backfired more times than she could count. But the Aegis was a testament to humanity's resilience, to its adaptability. It was as much a product of sheer will as it was of advanced science. And now it was in her hands, humanity's last hope against the relentless tide bearing down on them. Ahead, in the darkness, she caught her first glimpse of the Eldrick's armada. Even from this distance, the sheer number of ships was staggering, a formidable force arranged in perfect formation, bristling with weaponry and radiating an intimidating presence that made Ava's pulse quicken. The sight was breathtaking in its magnitude, a display of the power that had obliterated entire worlds. "Captain, we're picking up Eldrick's transmissions." Nexus, the Aegis's onboard AI, informed her, its calm voice a grounding presence in the midst of Ava's growing anxiety. "They seem to have detected an anomaly in our direction. Suggest maintaining minimum energy output to avoid detection." Ava nodded, her mind racing. She would have to be careful, patient, and more calculated than ever. The Eldricks were known for their advanced technology and strategic prowess. Any misstep, any overextension, could reveal her position and spell disaster for not only her, but the entire mission. Yet, beneath the nerves, a steely determination took root. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was the spearhead of humanity's final strike. "Copy that, Nexus. Let's keep it tight," she whispered, eyes locked on the massive enemy formation ahead. She felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the anticipation of battle sharpening her senses. There was no room for error. The clock was ticking, and Earth's fate was in her hands. With a deep breath, she steadied herself. This was it. The last desperate gambit. The Aegis hummed quietly around Ava, a blend of familiar human design and something far more alien, almost sentient in its capabilities. She could feel the pulse of energy flowing through the ship, the flicker of lights on the console seeming almost alive, responding to her presence. This was no ordinary vessel. It was the culmination of years of stolen alien technology, combined with human ingenuity, crafted in secret facilities by the brightest minds left in humanity's fractured ranks. Yet, even as its pilot, Ava knew there were aspects of the ship she barely understood. In the silence of space, Nexus, her AI companion, became her closest ally. "Captain Torres, all systems are online and functioning within expected parameters," Nexus reported, its synthetic voice calm and measured. "We are nearing the outer perimeter of the Eldrick's armada. Visual range on forward scanners." Ava's eyes narrowed as she focused on the display. The Eldrick's fleet loomed ahead like a vast, merciless wave. Thousands of ships filled the screen, each one a city-sized monolith armed to the teeth, their sleek designs a reminder of just how advanced the Eldricks were. This wasn't just a fleet. It was a show of supremacy, a force that had crushed every resistance they'd faced across countless worlds. "Let's keep our distance for now, Nexus," Ava murmured, carefully adjusting the controls to maintain a low profile. The Aegis's cloaking technology was sophisticated but untested in such a high-stakes scenario. With this many eyes watching, the slightest miscalculation would spell her end. She glanced over the ship's main console, her mind racing through the intricacies of the Aegis. They had embedded alien tech into the core of the ship, a quantum manipulation drive that allowed the Aegis to shift energy in ways humanity hadn't yet mastered. It wasn't just a propulsion system, it could manipulate gravitational fields, bend energy, and distort nearby matter to evade detection. But the drive was also notoriously unstable, requiring a steady hand and immense mental focus to control. The integration hadn't been easy. Human engineers had struggled to reverse engineer the captured Eldrick's technology, the complex designs pushing the limits of human understanding. The scientists had warned her about the strain the Aegis could place on a pilot, that syncing with the ship could be taxing, even lethal if pushed too far. Ava knew that if this battle dragged on, she'd be risking not only her life, but her sanity. Nexus set systems for adaptive energy response. "Will engage the quantum drive only if absolutely necessary," she said, her voice steady but betraying a hint of tension. It was a gamble, But in this game of cat and mouse, she needed every advantage. A sudden thought broke through her focus. Her family. Memories of her younger brother flashed in her mind. His laughter, his dreams. To one day explore space with her. She remembered his excitement, his awe at the stories she'd brought home from her early cadet days. But the Eldrix invasion had taken him too, along with nearly everything and everyone she had cared about. That loss was her fuel, the fire that kept her pushing forward. This wasn't just a mission, it was personal. As she drifted closer to the fleet, her focus sharpened. The vastness of the Eldrix formation was almost hypnotic, their ships lined in perfect military symmetry, their metallic surfaces gleaming with an eerie alien light. Ava knew she would have to disable or destroy many of these ships if she wanted to reach the flagship, and that meant risking detection. But she had no other choice. Earth couldn't withstand another wave of Eldrix assaults. This was it. Nexus, she whispered. Begin analyzing structural vulnerabilities. Target the closest warships and prepare to engage silently. Affirmative, Captain, Nexus replied. Scanning for weaknesses. I have identified several vulnerable points in the forward sections of the nearest ships, recommending precise energy discharges for maximum impact. Ava took a deep breath. Her grip on the controls tightened. As she directed the Aegis toward the nearest ship in the Eldrix line, she felt the hum of the quantum drive intensify as energy pooled in the ship's core, ready to be unleashed. With surgical precision, she released a narrow energy pulse. It sliced through the darkness, invisible to the naked eye, and struck a weak spot in the alien vessel's hull. There was a brief, silent explosion as the ship's structural integrity buckled, causing it to drift out of formation. The alien crew's response was immediate. Ava watched as the ships around the fallen vessel adjusted their positions, their energy readings spiking. For a moment, she held her breath, waiting to see if they'd detect her. But the armada returned to its position, maintaining formation, seemingly unaware of her presence. A small victory, but in this battle, every win counted. Good work, Nexus. Let's keep moving. Maintain cloaking and repeat the tactic, she instructed, directing the Aegis toward her next target. One ship down, thousands more to go. The task seemed impossible, yet she had no choice but to believe she could pull it off. As she approached the next vessel, Nexus interrupted her thoughts. Captain, Eldrix flagship detected. Scanning reveals increased energy output and defensive capabilities. Supreme Warlord Krelvrax is likely aboard. Ava's stomach tightened. Krelvrax, the supreme commander of the Eldrix armada, a figure shrouded in fear and infamy. Reports from other star systems painted him as a ruthless leader, a master tactician, and an implacable foe. Capturing or destroying Krelvrax was humanity's only hope of survival. If she could bring him down, it would send shockwaves through the alien ranks. Ava allowed herself a rare smirk. Krelvrax, huh? Let's hope he's ready to meet a human up close, she muttered. Nexus, set course for the flagship, she commanded. She felt the Aegis respond instantly, a bond forged through hours of training and battle readiness. The ship moved like an extension of herself, its energy flowing seamlessly with her thoughts and intentions. As the Aegis glided through the fleet, Ava felt her heart race. She was aware of the stakes, the enormity of the task she'd undertaken. She had left behind everything to become Earth's final weapon, and with each alien ship she bypassed or disabled, she inched closer to Krelvrax and the heart of the Eldrix armada. A sudden alert flashed across her console. Captain, Eldrix ships are exhibiting irregular energy signatures. They may be recalibrating their sensors to detect cloaked anomalies, Nexus warned. Its tone still calm but laced with urgency. Looks like they're catching on, Ava replied, gritting her teeth. We'll have to be quicker. Keep us moving, Nexus. I'm not letting them trap us here. For the first time, she felt the cold touch of fear creeping into her thoughts. The Eldrix were learning, adapting. They'd underestimated her once, but it wouldn't happen again. The clock was ticking, and she was running out of time. But she pushed the fear aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. She was 1 against 10,000, yet she knew that her spirit, her fire, was something the Eldrix could never replicate. As the Aegis drifted closer to the heart of the Eldrix armada, Ava's focus sharpened. The sheer number of ships around her was staggering. Thousands of massive war vessels, sleek and intimidating, loomed like an endless wall of destruction. Their coordinated movements, the precision of their formations, all conveyed an unbreakable confidence, as if no force could touch them. Ava knew she was a mere speck in their vast universe, but that didn't weaken her resolve. She had one chance to dismantle this terrifying fleet from within, and every instinct told her it was now or never. "Nexus, prepare the targeting systems. We're going in," she said, her voice steady. "Acknowledged, Captain," Nexus replied, calibrating the weapons to respond with deadly precision. "Initiating silent strike mode. We'll remain cloaked as long as possible, but each attack increases the likelihood of detection." Ava nodded. She was fully aware of the risks. The more she struck, the closer the Eldrix would get to pinpointing her position. But if she didn't strike now, the entire mission would be for nothing. She needed to thin the fleet's numbers, create chaos within their ranks, and buy herself time to reach Krell Vrax's flagship. With a focused breath, she locked onto her first target, a mid-sized Eldrix cruiser positioned at the edge of the formation. The ship was a daunting mass of alien metal, with hull plating designed to repel the kind of attacks humanity typically deployed. But Ava's weapons were far from typical. The Aegis's energy manipulation systems allowed her to bypass traditional shields, delivering devastating internal damage without a direct hit. "Firing," she whispered, and a silent beam of energy lanced out from the Aegis, invisible to the naked eye. It struck the cruiser, slicing through its defenses and hitting its core. A second later, the ship erupted into a cloud of debris, scattering chunks of metal and plasma into the void. It was a clean, quiet kill, but the destruction left a glaring hole in the Eldrix formation. The surrounding ships immediately responded. Ava could see their energy signatures shifting, sensors recalibrating as they tried to locate the source of the disturbance. But before they could adjust, she had already moved on, the Aegis slipping through their ranks like a shadow, targeting her next mark. One by one, she dismantled the fleet. Each strike was swift and lethal, her precision creating confusion and fear among the Eldrix. They were an empire built on domination and invincibility, unaccustomed to facing a threat they couldn't see. Ava relished the advantage, watching as ship after ship faltered and fell, but her success came with a price. As the attacks continued, the Eldrix began adapting. Their sensors grew sharper, more attuned to the faint energy pulses the Aegis emitted with each shot. The armada tightened its formation, and the ships took on defensive positions, rotating to cover potential vulnerabilities. Ava knew her window was closing, the element of surprise slipping through her fingers. "Captain," Nexus alerted her, "multiple Eldrix ships are now projecting a scanning field that might compromise our cloaking, recommending evasive maneuvers." "Understood, Nexus. Let's keep moving," she replied, suppressing the tension that was building in her chest. She adjusted the Aegis's trajectory, weaving through the thickening formation of ships, her mind calculating escape routes as quickly as she could devise them. But the Eldrix were relentless. Two massive battlecruisers turned, their weapons charging as they fixed on her last known position. Ava's heart pounded as she realized she'd been marked. The scanners had detected her, and the aliens were closing in fast. She banked sharply, accelerating to break free of their lock, but the ship's systems struggled under the strain. "Warning," Nexus stated, "cloaking stability at 70%. If we maintain evasive maneuvers, cloaking will destabilize." "Then stabilize it," Ava barked, maneuvering the Aegis with all the skill she possessed. The Eldrix ships were closing in, their sensor readings honing in on her position. She needed to think fast. She pushed the Aegis to its limits, dodging blasts of energy and twisting through the narrow gaps between ships. Suddenly, an energy blast from a nearby destroyer grazed her hull, sending a shockwave through the cockpit. The cloaking field flickered, briefly exposing the Aegis to the surrounding ships. Alarms blared, and Ava fought to keep her grip steady, her heart racing as she realized the enemy had a clear line of sight. "Nexus, deploy countermeasures. Now," she commanded, bracing herself. A series of decoy flares erupted from the Aegis, scattering bright signals that overloaded the Eldritch sensors. The alien ships paused, momentarily blinded as they tried to filter through the sudden barrage of signals. Ava took advantage of the confusion, realigning her ship and diving into a tighter formation where the larger vessels couldn't follow as easily. As she navigated through the chaos, her mind raced. She knew this level of close combat couldn't last. If she continued to rely solely on stealth and speed, she'd be worn down, cornered by the sheer volume of alien forces. She needed a new strategy, a way to turn their numbers against them. Nexus. Analyze the fleet formation and identify any structural weaknesses in their layout, she instructed, her eyes scanning the shifting patterns of the armada. Analyzing, Nexus replied. After a brief pause, it offered a solution. Captain, I have identified a series of power relays distributed among the command ships. Disabling key nodes within these relays could disrupt the fleet's coordination, creating disarray. Ava's lips curled into a grim smile. It was a risky play, but it could give her the advantage she needed. Lock onto the nearest relay node. Let's shake things up. The Aegis pivoted, its sensors honing in on a towering command ship embedded deep within the formation. This vessel was larger than the others, equipped with extensive command modules that controlled multiple subsystems across the fleet. Taking it out would throw the entire armada into temporary chaos, buying her precious time. She aligned her weapons, charging them for a focused shot. Firing on target, she whispered, releasing the deadly pulse. The beam hit the command ship with pinpoint accuracy, ripping through its hull and causing a cascade of explosions as its systems short-circuited. The blast tore through the surrounding ships, sending out shockwaves that disrupted the formation. Panic rippled through the Eldritch's fleet. Ships scrambled to adjust their positions, several colliding in the process as they struggled to maintain order. Ava could see the confusion spreading, captains across the fleet attempting to recalibrate without their primary guidance system. But her victory was short-lived. Her brief exposure had been enough for the enemy to refine their sensor readings. Nexus's voice cut through the comms. Captain, enemy ships are recalibrating to our signal. We have been partially compromised. Ava cursed under her breath. She could feel the net closing in, the Eldritchs adapting faster than she had anticipated. Every tactic she employed only delayed the inevitable. But despite the grim odds, she held her ground, maneuvering the Aegis with an unyielding focus, refusing to let fear dictate her moves. As the alien ships closed in from all directions, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. She was down to the last few plays, each riskier than the last, but she wasn't ready to give up, not while there was still a chance to bring Krelvrax to his knees. This was the moment she'd trained for, the battle that would define her legacy. With the Eldritch's fleet closing in, Ava knew she had only moments to make a choice. Her ship's cloak was compromised, and every maneuver she attempted only delayed the inevitable. But surrender wasn't an option. If she failed, Earth would be defenseless. Her jaw tightened as she weighed her options. She could keep fighting the Eldritch's fleet head-on, but the odds were turning more heavily against her with each passing second. Nexus, what's the status of the quantum displacement drive? She asked, her voice resolute despite the tension mounting around her. Quantum displacement drive is operational, though usage at this proximity to multiple gravitational fields is not advised, Nexus replied. Activating the drive in these conditions could lead to unpredictable spatial anomalies. Ava's eyes flickered to the quantum drive controls. This technology was humanity's last resort, a high-stakes experiment that could warp space to move her ship instantly across short distances. It was meant to provide an escape or, in this case, a strategic advantage. But Nexus was right. Using it here, amid so many alien ships and gravitational pulls, was as much a gamble as it was a tactic. Yet the enemy was pressing in, tightening the noose. We don't have another choice, Nexus. Initiate quantum displacement drive and prepare for an emergency shift, she commanded. Understood, Captain. Calculating safe re-entry points, Nexus's voice was steady, but Ava could sense the underlying risk calculations it was running. Brace for quantum displacement in 3, 2, One, a sudden, disorienting jolt filled the cockpit as the Aegis seemed to twist through itself, the very fabric of space bending around her. One moment, she was surrounded by a wall of Eldrick ships, and the next, she reappeared several kilometers away, behind the core of the alien formation. Her sensors immediately lit up, detecting a narrow gap in the fleet where she could regroup and plan her next move. For a heartbeat, Ava allowed herself a sigh of relief. The maneuver had worked, buying her a brief respite, but her sense of victory was short-lived. The quantum displacement drive, though powerful, left an energy trace that the Eldricks were quick to pick up on. Her display screen flashed with dozens of red markers, ships breaking off from the main fleet to pursue her new location. "They're adapting faster than expected," Ava muttered under her breath. "Confirmed," Nexus responded. "The Eldricks have deployed specialized hunter ships equipped with advanced tracking capabilities, suggest diverting energy to defensive maneuvers." Ava's hands tightened on the controls as she surveyed the scene before her. She couldn't keep evading them forever. The Eldricks hunters were relentless, their pursuit uncompromising. She was fast running out of options. Her only advantage was that they still hadn't figured out the full scope of the Aegis's capabilities. "Nexus, initiate evasive maneuvers," Ava ordered, weaving the Aegis in and out of the chaotic battlefield. The Eldricks ships swarmed after her, their energy cannons charging as they anticipated her moves. The first volley of blasts surged past her, dangerously close. The Aegis jolted as a near miss sent vibrations through the hull. Ava's vision blurred briefly, but she forced herself to focus, adrenaline keeping her mind sharp as she accelerated and turned sharply, dodging the onslaught. She fired back sporadically, picking off smaller vessels that strayed too close, but knew she couldn't hold them off much longer. In that moment, a daring thought struck her: the asteroid field. She had noticed it earlier, a dense collection of massive rocks and debris orbiting just beyond the edge of the battlefield. It was treacherous terrain for any ship to navigate, but if she could lure the Eldricks into it, their overwhelming numbers would become a disadvantage. The asteroid field would give her cover, a chance to force them into a bottleneck. "Nexus, plot a course to the asteroid field," she said, glancing at her sensors to confirm the field's coordinates. "We're about to turn this chase into a trap. Calculating optimal trajectory. Be advised, the asteroid field presents extreme navigational hazards," Nexus cautioned. "Collision risk increases by 300%. Ava smiled grimly. "That goes for them too. Set course and keep the drive ready. We might need to shift again if things get tight." The Aegis surged forward, darting toward the asteroid field with the Eldricks hunters close behind. As they approached the field, Ava navigated between massive rocks, maneuvering the ship with expert precision. The Eldricks ships pursued, their larger formations struggling to keep up with her nimble evasion tactics. The asteroid field's massive boulders and spinning debris created a labyrinthine network that only a small, agile ship could navigate at speed. The Eldricks hunters found themselves forced to break formation, struggling to follow her path without colliding with the floating giants. One ship tried to outflank her, but was crushed by a passing asteroid, its shields unable to withstand the impact. Seeing the Eldricks struggling in the chaos, Ava pushed further in, drawing them deeper into the asteroid field. Her sensors registered several more collisions among the hunters as they scrambled to keep up, their advanced tracking tech useless in the face of unpredictable obstacles. She had successfully turned the environment into a weapon, but Ava wasn't out of danger. The constant evasive maneuvers and narrow escapes were draining the Aegis's energy reserves faster than anticipated. She felt the strain as the ship's systems fought to keep up, the quantum displacement drive still active but nearing its operational limit. Her brief advantage in the field was slipping as more hunters adapted to the terrain. "Nexus, how much energy do we have left for another quantum shift?" she asked, glancing at the depleted readings flashing on her console. "Current reserves allow for a single short-range displacement. Nexus reported. Any further attempts may lead to complete system failure. Ava clenched her teeth, weighing her options. She needed a way to maximize the impact of her last shift. Just then, an idea formed. A high-stakes maneuver that could either turn the tide or end her mission altogether. Nexus, are you tracking the Eldrix command ship's location? She asked, a spark of resolve flickering in her eyes. Affirmative, Captain. Command vessel identified at coordinates 312 by 448. Nexus confirmed, projecting the image of Krell Vrax's flagship on her display. It was a monstrous vessel, the largest ship in the fleet, and heavily fortified. Destroying it outright was impossible, but if she could disrupt it, the chaos would ripple through the rest of the armada. Ava's plan solidified. Prepare the quantum displacement drive. We're going to shift directly into the heart of their command formation. Nexus hesitated. A rare moment of pause from the AI. Captain, proximity to the command ship will expose the Aegis to extreme retaliation. Probability of survival drops below acceptable thresholds. That's a risk we have to take, Ava replied, her voice unwavering. If we can destabilize their command structure, it'll throw the entire fleet off balance. We just need one good shot. With the last of the Aegis's energy reserves, she activated the quantum displacement drive. Space twisted around her once more, and in a flash, the Aegis reappeared in the heart of the Eldrix command formation, within striking distance of Krell Vrax's flagship. Alarms blared through her cockpit as the surrounding ships scrambled, their targeting systems locking onto her instantly. She could feel the heat of their energy beams warming the hull, seconds from impact. Target the command ship's power core, she ordered, bracing herself for the final assault. Ava fired, releasing a concentrated burst of energy directly at the flagship's central node. The impact shattered the shield, and a ripple of explosions spread across the ship's hull. The Eldrix formation dissolved into chaos as the command ship faltered, leaving the rest of the fleet disoriented. She had done it, dealt a blow to the heart of their command. Now, all she could do was hope it would be enough. As the flagship of Supreme Warlord Krellvrax buckled, under the impact of Ava's last strike, the Eldrix formation scattered in disarray. The once immaculate wall of ships, all moving in flawless coordination, now looked like a disturbed hornet's nest, each vessel veering off in different directions. Ava seized the moment, pushing the Aegis to its limits, knowing she had only a narrow window before they recovered. Captain, Eldrix ships are attempting to regroup, Nexus alerted, its voice steady but tinged with urgency. Their primary command structure is down, but secondary commanders are restoring control. Ava's gaze was fixed on the view ahead. She could see Krell Vrax's flagship, the Harbinger, struggling to stabilize itself, sparks and fires breaking out along its hull. But the warlord wasn't defeated yet. She knew he'd retaliate with all the fury of a wounded predator. If he managed to reestablish order, it would be over. Prepare for close quarters engagement, Ava ordered. We're taking the fight to him. The Aegis accelerated, its damaged hull groaning under the pressure. Ava's hands were steady, her mind clear. She had spent years preparing for this, training for the day she'd face the alien force that had razed her home and shattered countless lives. Now, with everything on the line, she felt only resolve. As she closed in on the Harbinger, Krell Vrax himself appeared on her comms display, his cold, reptilian eyes staring her down with a mix of disdain and restrained fury. Human, he sneered, his voice a low, guttural rasp. You are an anomaly. Your kind was supposed to perish quietly, to vanish like dust in the void. Yet here you are, defiling my fleet, but it will not save your species. Ava's jaw tightened. Maybe not, but it's going to save them from you. Krell Vrax's eyes narrowed, a cruel smirk stretching across his face. You've gambled everything on this toy. A single ship cannot change the fate of a species. Then watch me, Ava shot back, cutting off the transmission. She wasn't here to talk. Her mission was clear, and there was no room for distraction. She approached the Harbinger, maneuvering the Aegis with precise, calculated movements, keeping it just out of range of the flagship's primary cannons. Her plan was simple: get close enough to deliver one final, decisive blow, a targeted strike that would cripple Krell Vrax and send the rest of the Eldrix fleet spiraling into chaos. Nexus, "Prepare quantum displacement drive for an overcharge," she commanded. "We're going to overload it directly in front of the flagship. That should destabilize their shields and give us an opening. Warning: an overcharge at this range will likely result in catastrophic damage to the Aegis," Nexus cautioned. "Survival probability falls to less than 5%. Ava's grip on the controls tightened, but her voice remained calm. "We're out of options, Nexus. This is our only shot, and we're taking it." The AI paused, then finally replied, "Understood, Captain. Preparing for quantum displacement overcharge." The Aegis hummed as power built within its core, the ship's systems straining as the quantum drive approached its critical threshold. Ava's display flickered as warning alerts filled the cockpit, red lights flashing to indicate the danger she was putting herself in. But she pushed the fear aside, focusing only on her target. She closed in on the Harbinger, every second bringing her closer to the flagship's vulnerable core. The Eldrix ships surrounding the flagship fired relentlessly, but the Aegis's unpredictable maneuvers kept her just out of their reach. Ava felt the strain, the G-forces pressing down on her as she dodged each blast, her senses sharp and alive. Finally, she reached her position, directly in front of the Harbinger, mere meters from its reinforced hull. Krell Vrax's face appeared on her display again, now filled with fury and disbelief. "You dare!" he began, but Ava didn't let him finish. "Nexus, initiate quantum displacement overcharge now." The drive activated, unleashing a surge of energy so powerful that space itself seemed to ripple around the Aegis. The force of the displacement exploded outward, colliding with the Harbinger's shields. The flagship's defenses flickered, strained, then shattered under the sheer pressure, leaving Krell Vrax's vessel exposed. Ava seized the moment, redirecting every remaining ounce of power to the Aegis's primary weapon. "This is for Earth," she whispered, locking onto the flagship's core and firing. A beam of intense energy burst forth, slamming directly into the Harbinger's hull. The ship's armor melted away, revealing the vulnerable core beneath. The explosion that followed was deafening, even in the vacuum of space. Krell Vrax's flagship erupted in a blinding flash, fragments of metal scattering in every direction. The Eldrix ships nearby faltered, stunned by the destruction of their leader's vessel. As the shockwave dissipated, Ava felt a mixture of triumph and exhaustion. She had done it. Krell Vrax was gone, and the Eldrix armada was in chaos. But her victory was short-lived. The Aegis's systems were failing, the overcharge having drained nearly all of its remaining power. Alarms blared, warning her of critical system failures. "Captain, all systems are at minimal functionality," Nexus reported. "Quantum drive is offline. Power levels at 3%. Recommend immediate evacuation." Ava laughed bitterly. "No escape pods on this one, Nexus. Guess we're going down together." She could feel the ship's structure deteriorating, pieces of the hull breaking away as power continued to drain. But she wasn't afraid. She'd achieved what she had set out to do, given humanity a fighting chance. The Eldrix fleet was in disarray, their command severed. Her sacrifice, she hoped, would rally Earth to rebuild, to rise again. Ava's gaze softened. As she took in the vast expanse of stars one last time, she thought of her family, of all the people waiting on Earth, holding on to the last shreds of hope. Her mission had bought them time. Maybe that was enough. As the Aegis drifted, on the verge of complete failure, a final transmission from General Stinson broke through the static. "Captain Torres, we received your signal. The Eldrix fleet is withdrawing, scattered, broken. You did it. Earth is safe." Ava smiled faintly, her hand resting on the console as she whispered, "Tell them to rebuild, General. Make this sacrifice count." Her voice faded as the ship's systems finally shut down, the lights dimming to darkness. The Aegis drifted in silence, its mission complete. Ava Torres, humanity's last defender, had secured their future in the stars. Far below, on Earth, people cheered as the Eldrix armada retreated, the invincible wall of ships now a scattering of lost vessels. Cities erupted in celebration, and families wept with relief. They would never forget the pilot who had stood alone against an empire, the one who had shown them that even in the darkest of times, hope was worth fighting for. Ava's legacy would live on, etched into the memory of every survivor, her bravery a beacon guiding humanity toward a new dawn.